31, Paul has, well, we're just going creeping verse by verse. So you remember, Paul has taken four of the men who were suggested for him to take to the temple. They've begun a process of making vows. The just as the 7 days of purification were ending, Jews from the province of Asia, they start a riot. And, well, we're in verse 30. The whole city was aroused, and the people came running from all directions. Seizing Paul, they dragged him from the temple, and immediately the gates were shut. Verse 31, while they were trying to kill him. Now, this wasn't about, oh, let's just beat him up and teach him a lesson. No, they were trying to kill him. While they were trying to kill him, news reached the commander of the Roman troops that the whole city of Jerusalem was in an uproar. This was not good news, because word of this could get back to Rome, and it would implicate him as a weak leader. Well, he at once took some officers and soldiers and ran down to the crowd. He didn't just mosey down. This was a 911 moment, all hands on deck. When the rioters saw the commander and his soldiers, they stopped beating Paul. Good idea. Quick pause here. It was not by accident or by just, I don't know what to call it, just natural causes that the commander of the Roman troops in Jerusalem heard about this quickly enough and responded quickly enough that he effectively stopped the rioting Jews from murdering Paul. Now, okay. Verse 33, the commander came up and arrested him. What? The guy that's getting beaten gets arrested? Well, yeah. They arrested him and ordered him to be bound in 2 chains. Like, you must be a bad dude if the whole city's turned out and now they're beating the thunder out of you. Then he asked who he was and what he had done. Ready, fire, aim. But honestly, though, this was not an uncommon thing to happen in Century 1 Jerusalem with the Roman commander of troops. Some things to always remember about Romans, excuse me, Roman soldiers in Jerusalem. Nobody volunteered for that posting. This would be, I don't even know what it would relate to in our world, but it was an outpost among weird people with weird customs and weird food and weird smells. Nobody wanted to be there. and so when anything happened like this, they didn't have a soft response. I mean, they they don't want to be here already, right? Don't make me do anything here. And you made me. Okay, so anyway, verse 34, some in the crowd shouted one thing and some another, and since the commander could not get at the truth because of the uproar, he ordered that Paul be taken into the barracks, meaning get us out of this crowd. where we can have a little bit of privacy and I can, like, actually do an interrogation. Well, just the idea that some were shouting one thing, others shouted another. Isn't that the nature of a riot? Riots don't, this kind of a riot doesn't happen on a rational basis. Okay. Verse 35, when Paul reached the steps, the violence of the mob was so great, he had to be carried by the soldiers. Okay, these people in the mob weren't casual. But even with the presence of the commander, and we don't know how many, but enough soldiers to make a statement, they were still so worked up and so, I think, just almost literally out of their minds. They were still trying to get at Paul. The soldiers had to pick him up and carry him. Verse 36, the crowd that followed kept shouting, "Get rid of him," which I wish I was a Greek scholar, because I think although that's one of the ways it could be translated, I think the intent behind that is not just get him out of here. It means rid the earth of him, kill him. What was behind this irrationality? Who was behind it? Oh, I can give you my opinion because it's never stated in the text, but my opinion is the devil, our mortal enemy, will never quit trying to thwart, inhibit, stop God's design and plan. Did he make these people do something? See, I don't think Satan can make us do anything, but I think James says it this way: no, when tempted, no one should say he's being tempted by God, because we're tempted when we are dragged away and enticed by our own evil desires, which that's kind of what it's almost like Satan didn't even have to pull the pin on the thought grenade. He just lobbed it out there. They pulled the pin. Their hearts and minds were already so hardened against Paul. They would never have accepted the idea that they had hardened themselves against God. And yet I think that's exactly what had happened. It happens in my life. Does it ever happen for you that your thinking brain, this front part of your brain, is called the prefrontal cortex. It's your executive command center. It's where you choose between options by filtering, and much of what we filter when we're in our right mind is the consequences of choice. There are times in my life where, although I'm sure it was available to me, the prefrontal cortex somehow got hijacked by the limbic system of my brain, where all my emotions are. And as a result of that, I have made bad choices that when I reflect on them, I think, what in the world was I thinking? You probably never have that problem. Verse 37, as the soldiers were about to take Paul into the barracks, he asked the commander, "May I say something to you?" "Do you speak Greek?" he replied. "Aren't you the Egyptian who started a revolt and led 4,000 terrorists out into the wilderness some time ago?" Mistaken identity. Okay. The commander was acting on an untested assumption. Can't even tell you the number of times in my counseling where untested assumptions have created all kinds of ugly, angry, hurtful, destructive things in people's lives. All right, here it is. Verse 39, Paul answered, I'm a Jew from Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no ordinary city. Please let me speak to the people. Okay, so what Paul was doing is this was almost like, here's my passport, plop. He's a Jew from Tarsus, which was an important city and a Roman colony. So on the basis of that, he makes this request, let me speak to the people. Now that, in some ways, I kind of would like to say to Paul, it won't matter. Their thinking brains are not available. I mean, you could talk till you're blue in the face. It's not going to matter. But for some reason, Paul, he wanted to talk. Verse 40. After receiving the commander's permission, Paul stood on the steps and motioned to the crowd. I don't know what kind of motion he made, but maybe it was... When they were all silent, that is no small thing. It's hard enough to get a room full of people to shut up, to quit talking, And these are not people who are all jacked up with hate in their heart and murder as their motive. But Paul got the commander's permission. I mean, I'm putting myself in the commander's sandals and thinking, why? What damage? I mean, why not? So he gave him permission. And when the crowd was finally silent, then he spoke in Aramaic. Well, there's a reason why he spoke in Aramaic. When he spoke to the commander, evidently he spoke in Greek. Now he's speaking to this crowd in Aramaic, which was their national native tongue. Another way to get their attention, I think. Brothers and fathers, this is verse 1 of chapter 22. Listen now to my defense. There are times in Paul's writings that I think this guy is just, I mean, he's a lawyer. He builds a case, point upon point upon point. In my opinion, Romans is one of the book of Romans is laid out in that way. It's constructed in that way. Listen now to my defense. When they heard him speak to them in Aramaic, they became very quiet. Then Paul said, I am a Jew, born in Tarsus of Cilicia, brought up in this city. I studied under Gamaliel and was thoroughly trained in the law of our ancestors. I was just as zealous for God as any of you are today. I persecuted the followers of this way to their death, arresting both men and women and throwing them into prison. As a high priest and the council can testify themselves, I even obtained letters from them to their associates in Damascus and went there to bring these people as prisoners to Jerusalem to be punished. Well, basically, Paul just said, my background is, grew up here. I was raised in this city. at the feet of Gamaliel, one of the most respected rabbis in all of first century Judaism. Next, he's going to start telling his story. Well, he's already started. We'll come back to that next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.